It's time for a Wellness Revolution. Brought to you by Hotze Health and Wellness Center. Honest discussion on maintaining health and wellness naturally to enjoy a better quality of life.
He's the doctor fighting to let you keep your doctor.
Now, Dr. Stephen Hotze. Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution podcast is brought to you by Physicians Preference Pharmacy, formerly Hotze Pharmacy.
Thank you for joining us today here at Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution. I'm Stacey Banfield here with Dr. Stephen Hotze, founder of the Hotze Health and Wellness Center. Just a reminder, you can go to hotzepodcast.com, that's Hotze podcast.com, to download all of our podcast programs. Now, this is a topic that affects a lot of people, but a lot of times it's not talked about because some of the side effects and even the name sounds kind of, yeast overgrowth. What is that? That sounds kind of disgusting a little bit. So explain to us, Dr. Hotze, about yeast overgrowth, what that is and how that affects so many people.
Well, yeast is a form of fungus. And
I knew it. Ugh.
And yeast, of course, is used to make bread rise. You put yeast into bread. We have yeast that ferments alcoholic products. So in wine or any kind of alcoholic product, you have a yeast fermentation that produces the alcohol content in the various products, liquor products, beer, wine, and other grain products like whiskeys and scotch.
So it serves a function.
And vodka. And as we mentioned, you have to have yeast to help bread rise. So yeast plays a function. All of us have a little bit of yeast in our system, and it's in balance with natural healthy bacteria. You may not be aware, but all of us within our system have good healthy bacteria. It's really called formally autochthonous commensal bacteria. Those are normal healthy bacteria that live within our colon. They line our skin. They're in our oropharynx, line a woman's vagina, and they are healthy bacteria that keep bad bacteria out of our system so we are not sick. They really help us digest our food and our gut and even produce some vitamins that are helpful to us. So they provide a meaningful function. Those are healthy commensal normal bacteria. The bacteria that are bad are the pathogenic bacteria. These are the bacteria that cause us to have illnesses. You think of strep infections and staph infections and Pseudomonas infections and other type of bacterial infections that cause problems. Well, when a person has a secondary pathogenic infection, a physician will normally prescribe antibiotics, right, to kill the bacteria. Unfortunately, not only will those antibiotics kill the pathogenic or dangerous bacteria, but also kills some of the healthy normal bacteria. And yeast will overgrow because we all have a balance in our system between a little yeast and the bacteria. It's just there and it lives in balance. But when you kill the good bacteria, you can get a yeast overgrowth. Now, women commonly will say, when I take an antibiotic, look, I get recurrent female yeast infections and I need to have something to treat that. You can treat the female yeast infection, but not only did you have a yeast female infection, but also you have some yeast in the gut, in the colon. This happens both in men and women when they take antibiotics. And yeast grows on sugar. So when you have a high sugar diet, which is a high starch or carbohydrate diet, a lot of breads, pizzas, pastas, cakes, and those sort of things, you're going to notice some symptoms develop if you have a yeast overgrowth. And this can happen from just one course of antibiotics or several courses of antibiotics. I found this out when I first started treating for allergy, back in the late 1990s, when I started treating with allergy treatment, testing and treatment as a allergist. A lot of the patients that I saw who came in had recurrent and chronic infections, and they'd been on multiple antibiotics, and they had symptoms of yeast. Some of the women had recurrent yeast infections, but the other problems, particularly with the bloating, belching, gas, indigestion, gastroesophageal reflux, diarrhea, maybe skin disorders, skin rashes. They had recurrent headaches. They felt fatigued. They couldn't think clearly. They had some muscle aches and pains. They had fungus under their toenails. They had a problem with yeast overgrowth. And I've read about this in a book called The Yeast Connection by Dr. Crook. And it was a great book, and I began to treat my guests for yeast problems when they had all these symptoms of yeast. So I knew that to get them healthy, and another thing that can happen is an individual can become allergic to yeast. So then when they eat yeast products, because they have yeast in their system, they're making antibodies to it, they begin to react and have allergy symptoms whenever they eat bread products or whether they have wine or some alcoholic beverage or vinegar or something like that. That's yeast that has yeast products in it. They begin to react to that, so they get yeast sensitivity
and
or
Dr.
yeast
Hotze,
allergy.
and isn't it true that when people develop allergies to something like yeast, they tend to also crave?
Well,
It creates a craving as well.
Particularly on yeast, because yeast grows on sugar, and yeast produces toxins, and the toxins are released into the system. They get in our bloodstream. They circulate, so they're toxic. They're really yeast is a form of mold or fungi, and it produces mold toxins, which are toxic. They're toxic to our system, so they can cause a host of problems. And yeast grows on sugar, so when it doesn't get enough sugar and it's in your system, it begins to secrete toxins. And the only way that you can relieve that is to feed the yeast. You got to feed them sugar and then they calm down. But unfortunately, when you feed them your starch or sugar products, you get these cravings for sugar or starches. And then you get bloating, belching, and gas because yeast produces gas. Just like when you make bread rise, the way you do it, you have to, you get your dough and you knead it, but you got to get it to rise. So you have to take a glass of water and put some yeast in the glass of water. If you want to activate the yeast, put sugar in it. It just bubbles up. Well, that's what happens in the gut. That's why people get gas, indigestion, bloating, and belching, and gastroesophageal reflux and indigestion. All these symptoms can come from yeast. So you got to go. The way to treat it is fairly simple. You go on a yeast-free eating program. That means you eliminate sugar. You eliminate the simple carbohydrates from your eating plan altogether. You eat meats, you eat vegetables, you eat good oils. You eliminate all sugars. That includes fruit sugars. For minimally a month, and you take an oral medication called nystatin. Nystatin kills yeast in the spore form in the colon. And then after a month or so, you can take another medication called diflucan, which kills yeast in the mycelial form when it grows into the colon wall. You want to kill in both aspects. So you do that, and you go on a yeast-free eating program for about 3 months. And if you'll do that and you'll take that nystatin, then you clean up your gut and you'll find you'll feel so much better because you don't have the yeast in your system producing the toxins which are causing a host of symptoms from headaches to allergy problems to skin rashes and skin disorder to bloating, belching, gas, and all the other things associated with yeast overgrowth. So it's very simply treated, and you'll find that if you'll do that, it will have a dramatic improvement in your overall health and wellness and well-being.
Remember, everybody needs a health coach. And here at the Hotze Health and Wellness Center, it would be a privilege to serve you. And like Dr. Hotze said, yeast, it's something that can be a real problem. However, it can be treated naturally. And of course, we also have the medications as well that can kill that yeast and get you on a path of health and wellness. So just give us a call at 281-698-8698. That's 281-698-8698. Thank you for joining us today here at Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution.
A special thanks to Physicians Preference Pharmacy, formerly Hotze Pharmacy, proud sponsor of Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution podcast.
Information provided on this radio program is neither intended nor implied to be a substitute for professional medical advice and is not intended to replace the services of a physician, nor does it constitute a doctor-patient relationship. You should not use information from this radio program to diagnose or treat a health problem or disease without consulting with a qualified healthcare provider. If you have or suspect you have an urgent medical problem, promptly contact a professional healthcare provider or call 911. Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution radio program advises you to always seek the advice of a physician or other qualified health provider prior to starting any new treatment or with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Any application of the recommendations from this radio program is at the listener's discretion.